Hello everybody, it's Christian Bradley again, and we're back to talk more about Blender. This is one of the entry-level videos in our Blender program. And in this video, we're going to be talking about how to make some primitive meshes. My name is Christian Bradley. I'm going to be your guide through this part of the Blender videos. So let's get started. As you can see here, I have just the basic Blender screen up and running. And I'm going to go ahead and select this object. You can see it's got that orange selection around it. I'm in object mode, by the way. And I'm just going to hit delete on my keyboard and delete that. So I have no objects in my scene whatsoever. I'm going to go to the add button down here. It's also Shift A, so you can hit Shift A for add if you like. You see it's the same, basically the same menu. They're actually flip-flopped. I find that kind of strange. See meshes down here if you click here. And if I hit Shift A, it's up here at the top. I don't know why, but it is. So we're going to go ahead and go to Mesh. And in this case, I'm going to play around with making some of these different objects. So if you want to start diving in there and making some while you're watching the video, you can do that. I'm going to go ahead and make a torus. Now, a torus, like a ring, makes good wheels or rings, anything kind of round that it starts with. And now, as soon as I made my torus, these little guys over here appeared. They're way down here in the bottom left. And these are your attributes of your torus. So the location, which really isn't too important to us. Rotation, not too important to us right now. But major segments, now that one we really care about. I can click on that number and drag. And I am doing that with the left mouse. I believe that might be a right mouse click by default. Remember, I've changed my mouse settings. And I can change the settings there to be less segments if I want. Same thing here with these minor segments. And so I can even get something like a triangle or a cube if I want. So I'm just going to set it to something like that, kind of low poly. I can also come down here. I can change the torus dimensions if you want. I don't tend to mess with those. And I can change the exterior radius and the interior radius. So I can make it really skinny or really thick. I'm going to kind of make it really thick there. Now, this torus, if I go to edit mode, and remember I can get to edit mode by either clicking down here on object mode and go up to edit mode, or I can just hit the tab key. There we go. And now I, by default, have that entire object selected. Remember, the A key is the deselect all or select all button, and it is selecting all of whatever is checked right here. So right now it's selecting all vertices. Now it's selecting all polygons. If you get the vertices, polygons, and edges mixed up, this kind of threw me when I started Blender. I'm used to Maya and Max, where those vertices, segments, or polygons are kind of clearly marked. They'll just glow, like the vertices would just glow as vertices. Blender kind of counts everything when it says select all. So even though I'm selecting, see, vertices, like I click on a vertice, there's a vertice. If I hit A, it colors the whole object as if it's selected. The polygons end up having this little dot in the middle of them. So see, when I select all polygons, you see those little dots right there? That means polygon is selected. The edges and the vertices, there isn't much difference. And I'll show you what you look for. See right over here on the edge, watch like right there when I click vertices. See that little dot that pops up there? It's right there. That guy. Watch that guy right there when I say select all. See how there's a little bump right there? I'll zoom in. See that little bump right there? How about right there? And when I go to edges, it disappears. I think that's pretty subtle. My eyes aren't so good that I can see that all the time, but that's how you tell the difference. So I usually work in polygon mode. It has those little dots. Here's something else I want to show you about the primitives before we make any others. I'm going to go ahead and hit the N key. And the N key brings up these transforms over here. And if I go and scale this, so I'm going to hit the S key for scale, and you see that now I'm scaling it. If I scale it inside out, so in other words, it kind of goes all the way down and then flips and comes all the way back out, I actually have flipped the normals. And that was another thing that kind of threw me when I started Blender, is that that scale key is so easy to flip objects inside out that you need to kind of know how to check your normals every once in a while. I did this a lot when I started. I was flipping objects inside out, and I couldn't tell they were inside out, and then they weren't rendering right, and I couldn't figure out what was going on. So down below here, let's go find a way to check that. If we go way down here, it's underneath the mesh display. And if I look under normals, I'm going to go ahead and check that little polygon button. And we saw this in the last video. I think we did in the last video. I'm going to change the size just a little bit so I can see them. See how those normals are facing outward? If I go ahead and hit scale, whoops, wrong thing. Hit A, select all of them, and hit scale. And scale this all the way in, and then flip them. See how those little furry hairs disappeared? Well, they're still there. They are just inside. Can't really see them there, but they are just inside. There we go. See, they're inside. And that's because we flipped it inside out. If I go back to scale to fix this, and I could flip those polygons if I want. So see, now they're on the outside. And let's take a look at that in solid mode. There they are on the outside. You can also flip those. So if you want to manually flip them, which is going to happen quite a bit, you can go to Mesh, Faces, and Flip Normals, and you can flip them. So you can flip them back that way. So if you screw it up, you can just go to Mesh, Faces, and Flip Normals, and it'll flip them all on the outside. You have to have them all selected, so make sure you hit A before you do that, if you want to select them all. Or you can select one at a time and flip them, but I wouldn't do that. Okay, so back to our mesh. I'm going to go ahead and delete my torus there. And I'm going to go to Add, and let's add something different. So this time let's add a cone, just to see what all these look like. Again, I have scale selected. I'm going to grab this little transform and scale it this time. There's my normals. I'm going to go ahead and turn the normals off. I don't really need to see them for the rest of these. Here's our cone. Something to keep in mind with the cone is that it has a big n-gon down here at the bottom. Same with the cylinders. You're often going to have to patch that n-gon up by deleting that polygon and patching it. So in other words, just getting a hold of an edge or edges, however you want to do it, and hit F and seam that guy up. If you want to make it polygons, you'd have to do that all the way across. I'm going to leave that n-gon back on there because we're not going to have this cone up on our screen for too much longer. There we go. All right. And I'm going to go ahead and delete my cone. We've taken, well, you know what? Here, let's move the cone out. And instead of deleting it, let's just leave him here, and we'll make a little family of objects so we can take a look at each of them. There's our cone. Cylinder is basically the same as the cone. It has the same issue. It's got those n-gons on top. I am not real fond of that. I quite often have to fix that. But let's take a look at our cylinders options. It does have some interesting ones, and that is that we can come into our cone here. Actually, let me undo that real quick so that we can see it. Then we can make a new cone, so that, or cylinder, so that we can see our pieces here. I keep moving my cone. Okay, so here's our cone settings over here. And you can see our cone has a cap fill type. And you can either put nothing on the cap, an n-gon, which is the default, or a triangle fan. So I'm going to go ahead and hit triangle fan. I'm going to knock the segments down a little bit. And then I'm going to scale this up by hitting S. And you can see now that my cone has those triangle fans on top. It doesn't have a setting by default to put quads on the top, and that's probably because if I put it on an odd number on the number of segments, it wouldn't be a quad up there. It'd be a triangle in one of those spots. But I wish it had a little bit better settings instead of just triangles and n-gons. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and delete these. I said I wasn't, but let's delete these so that they're not in the way. All right, we'll take a look at a few more here. There's an icosphere, a UV sphere. The icosphere, if I grow or make this larger. Sorry about that, icosphere. Let's take a look at its settings. And you can subdivide this guy. So there's 1. It's like a 16-sided die. 2 is like a 20-sided die. It's kind of like Epcot Center, so it's made up of triangles. It just is weighted perfectly all the way around. I tend not to use those little icospheres. I usually would use something like a UV sphere. I don't necessarily know why it's called a UV sphere in Blender, but that's the sphere we're used to. So it's got the triangles on the top and the kind of disco ball look going. Remember, all your settings are over there in the bottom left for your primitive. So if you want to put in less segments, that's where you would do it. All right. And if I go to add, there are some others in here. There's cube, obviously. The cube we saw when we started, and we've seen the cube before. There is plane. That's a favorite for doing ground planes and so forth. Here's your radius for your plane. That's basically the size of the plane. And we have one last one we'll take a look at there, and that is our circle. So if I make a flat circle, you'll see that whole kind of spline-like circle will kick in. Okay, so what we're going to do in the next video is take a look at the, go back to object mode here so you can see them. We're going to take a look at the curves and how to make the curves and how to manipulate them. We'll also add a few more things to our key commands as we move along. There's a lot of key commands here in Blender. You're going to have to get used to the key commands. They're not going to go anywhere quickly. And how good you get at Blender really is dependent on how well you kind of embrace the key commands, I found. The interface just isn't going to do it all for you, like Max or Maya can do. Although most people use keys in those as well. But the interface in Blender just isn't going to give you all your options. You're going to have to use some keys. So that's going to do it for this video. I hope that's helpful, but we'll be right back with another video, and we'll take a look at splines next. Bye-bye.